this answers a fundamental question, for humanity. Are we alone, or, what happens when we die? Well, I don't know about that, but are we alone? Well, the answer is we're not alone. And I know that with 100% certainty, which as an intel officer, you never say 100%, but all things pointed towards, based on the people I talked to, like Harry Reid, and I use him as an example, but I talked to the highest of the high people you could possibly talk to, if you catch my drift. So unless all of them are lying and they're covering up something else, which I don't even know what it would be at this point, because the phenomenon is real. It's been going on for thousands of years. People have been seeing strange things, and not everybody's mass hallucinating. So that's kind of my long diatribe about what's happening.
What do they think these things are? The people that you talk to?
So they specifically, the people on the program that handle the material, that were in executive level briefings with intel community leaders and other folks over the years, last 20 years or so, they did use the term extraterrestrial, ET or whatever. Okay, that isn't a possible origin, but the Schumer Amendment, if you read it, it specifically uses non-human intelligence, NHI, very deliberately, because we want to catch everything, because what if some of this stuff is not ET and they're going to use that as an escape clause? Like, well, this stuff that we don't even know if it's extraterrestrial, so this doesn't apply. So that's why we wanted to be as broad as possible. I mean, besides ET, I mean, a lot of it would be my own personal opinion. I think we have a couple conceivable buckets, and I'm using the work of Jacques Vallée, other people that have thought deeply on the issue, on how the phenomenon has changed since antiquity. It showed itself in a different way. Like a good example is like witches sitting on your chest phenomenon with paralysis in medieval and Enlightenment era became this alien abduction phenomenon in the modern era. And is it the recipient and their analytical overlay cognitively seeing the phenomenon based on a modern interpretation, inside out? Or is the phenomenon, this is like Jacques Vallée's book, Passport to Magnolia, I can never pronounce it right, 1969, where he talks about the phenomenon seems to like masquerade itself as different stuff over the years. But, we've seen roughly the same stuff. You look at the Foo Fighters of World War II. There are declassified Air Force OSI reports from the 50s, people can Google, that talk about flying butane tanks with the same measurements, approximately what we saw in the 2004 Tic Tac incident, but they called it flying propane or butane tanks in the 50s.
What are the primary theories? The primary theories are from another planet or from another dimension. I
think those are the primary. I mean, there's certainly origins that we probably can't conceptualize as humans because our meat is stuck in 3D and we don't understand, and our IQs are only so high. So there might be some origins that we don't understand.
So this idea that these beings, or whatever you want to call them, exist in some other dimension, do we have, I don't know what you can say about this. Do we have an understanding? Do we have any sort of communication with these beings that give us some sort of an understanding or a map of this?
Yeah, the interaction stuff, that's a sensitive area. There were multiple very senior people that were concerned about talking about that kind of stuff with me. That is certainly, as nuts as it sounds, that was a real subject of conversation. Even it sounds like something out of like Star Trek First Contact.
But it doesn't if you have vehicles.
So it's like once you realize the phenomenon's real, then you realize we've recovered artifacts and, biologics or, dead pilots, if you will, even though it's, kind of creepy to even think about that in your worldview. You don't think they were ever, alive sometimes too, right? And I'll leave it at that only because that is something, the president and his cabinet need to disclose this in a controlled manner, going back to that amendment. I'm not here to, push the subject in an improper way. And that sounds like, why don't you just do it, Dave? I'm like, there's a lot of secondary and tertiary ramifications socioeconomically, theologically, our relationship geopolitically with our allies and adversaries. This is not rip off the Band-Aid and it's simple. There's a lot of complex stuff behind the scenes that need to happen, and that's why I'm laying out all the general stuff that needs to be talked about during the disclosure process, but I should not be the one disclosing, and it would be highly inappropriate because I care about the health of the United States and its people and national security for me to do so. So I know there's people that are like, oh, why doesn't Dave say X, Y, and Z? It's like, this is serious.
Was there a concern while you're going through all this that if you didn't come out with this, that we would be stuck in the same sort of loop for a long, long period of time and no one would ever have access to this stuff, that they would continue?
Yep. Yeah, and that you nailed it on the head is, I think my generation wants to change, the under 40 generation.
And you're confronted with one of the biggest mysteries in human history.
Yeah.
Which is, are we alone? And it seems like at least some people have the answer to that.
100%. I mean, the people I talked to certainly did, and they had close personal knowledge, and the intel reports I read, literally indicated that as well, like I talked about earlier. And, I remember some of the people who denied us access, they were like, I don't know what you're talking about, but if I did, why would you have a need to know? And I'm like, well, why did you have a need to know? You're just some multi-star general.
Well, you're a human being.
You're a human being. You're not better than me. I mean, who determines need to know on a humanistic question? It's like basic fact of life. Why are we classifying fact of life at this day and age in 2023? It's insane.